The alarms rang through Luna Naval Command like the screams of dying stars. Admiral Kim Dae-hyun stood before the massive display screen, watching as red dots appeared at the edge of the solar system. 847 alien ships had just dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with unknown metals and bristling with weapons that could turn planets into dust. Lieutenant Park Ji-won's hands shook as she worked at her communication station. The alien message had arrived 30 minutes ago, and she was still trying to make sense of it. The universal translator software struggled with the harsh, clicking language, but the meaning was clear enough. "Submit or die." "Admiral," Ji-won called out, her voice barely steady. "I've cleaned up the audio. You need to hear this." The alien voice filled the command center, cold and mechanical. It spoke of conquest and death, of 23 worlds that had burned when they refused to surrender. The message showed images of glassed planets, their surfaces turned to melted rock by weapons beyond human understanding. Cities that had once held billions were now empty craters filled with radioactive sand. Commander Lee Hana studied the tactical display with growing dread. The human fleet looked like toys compared to the alien armada. Earth had 127 ships scattered across the solar system. Most were old destroyers and cruisers that had been built to fight pirates and smugglers, not an invasion force from another star. "They're giving us 72 hours, Admiral Kim said quietly. His weathered face showed no fear, but his hands gripped the command rail tightly. "After that, they start shooting." The alien fleet moved with perfect coordination, like a school of metal fish swimming through the dark. Their ships were massive, some stretching for kilometers. Strange energy patterns danced along their hulls, and sensors detected power readings that made human reactors look like candle flames. Dr. Choi Min-soo arrived at the command center within an hour, carrying data tablets and looking exhausted. As Earth's top expert on alien technology, he had been studying the intercepted transmission since they first arrived. His findings were not encouraging. "They call themselves the Vorthak Empire," he explained to the gathered officers. "From what I can tell, they've been conquering worlds for thousands of years. They have a pattern. They arrive, demand surrender, and if refused, they kill everything on the planet." Commander Lee pulled up star charts on her tablet. "What about the species that surrendered?" "Slaves," Dr. Choi replied simply. "Their technology is always the same level, advanced enough to build cities and ships, but not advanced enough to fight back effectively. It's like they specifically target civilizations at our development level." The truth was terrifying. Humanity had walked into a trap that had been set long before they ever left Earth. The Vorthak were not explorers or traders. They were hunters who had perfected the art of finding prey. On Earth below, panic spread like wildfire. News broadcasts showed the alien fleet hanging in space like a sword above humanity's head. People emptied stores of food and water. Some tried to flee to remote areas, hoping to hide from the coming storm. Others gathered in churches and temples, praying to gods who seemed very far away. Lieutenant Ji-won intercepted communications between the alien ships. The universal translator could only catch fragments, but what it found made her blood run cold. The aliens were already discussing how to divide up Earth's resources. They talked about human slaves like cattle, debating which ones would be best for manual labor. "They're not even considering that we might fight back," she reported. "To them, this is already over." The Vorthak began their psychological warfare campaign. They jammed communications between Earth's colonies, cutting Mars and the asteroid mining stations off from each other. Unmanned satellites simply vanished in flashes of alien energy. The message was clear. Resistance was hopeless. Admiral Kim walked to his private office and activated a communication link that most of his staff did not know existed. The connection was heavily encrypted and routed through a dozen relay stations hidden throughout the outer solar system. "This is Luna Command," he said into the microphone. "Authorization code Titan 77. We have a code black scenario." "Repeat, code black." The response came from somewhere beyond Pluto in the cold darkness where few human ships ever traveled. "Confirmed, Admiral. Beginning activation sequence. Estimated time to operational status is 18 hours. Kim closed the link and returned to the command center. His staff was working frantically, trying to coordinate Earth's scattered defenses. They had no idea that their admiral had just awakened something that had been sleeping in the outer darkness for 15 years. The alien fleet continued its slow advance toward Mars. They moved without hurry, confident in their overwhelming superiority, Fleet Commander Thisera reviewed the intelligence reports about human military capabilities, kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, primitive nuclear devices, exactly what they expected from a species at this development level. Begin the demonstration, she ordered her weapons officers. Target the Martian terraforming stations. Show them what happens to worlds that resist. The first alien attack began 12 hours later. Plasma beams lanced out from the Vorthak ships, striking the automated stations that had been slowly making Mars habitable for human colonization. Each station vanished in a ball of superheated gas, leaving nothing but empty space and twisted metal. The message reached Earth within minutes. The aliens had just destroyed 50 years of terraforming work in less than an hour. The project that was supposed to give humanity a second home was gone, erased as easily as erasing words from a chalkboard. But Admiral Kim was not watching the destruction of Mars. He was staring at his private communication screen, waiting for a signal from the darkness beyond Neptune. When it came, it was just 2 words that would change everything. Titan operational. In the depths of space, something vast began to move. Systems that had been dormant for years started to wake up. Reactors that ran on principles beyond current human understanding began to generate power, and in a construction facility hidden in the Kuiper Belt, the most dangerous thing humanity had ever built prepared to reveal itself to the galaxy. The aliens thought they were hunting sheep. They were about to discover they had found wolves instead. Captain Yoon Seokjin was patrolling near Jupiter when the emergency signal reached his ship. The message was short and used codes that he had memorized but never expected to hear. After 15 years of secrecy, Project Titan was finally being activated. His crew watched in confusion as their captain suddenly changed course toward the outer solar system. They had been ordered to investigate strange energy readings near the Kuiper Belt, but Seokjin knew the truth. He was not investigating anything. He was going home to a ship that most people believed was just a legend. The journey took 8 hours, even at maximum speed. As they flew deeper into the cold darkness beyond Neptune, Seokjin's navigator began picking up massive energy signatures. Power readings that made their military cruiser look like a flashlight compared to a star. "Captain," the navigator called out, his voice filled with disbelief. "I'm detecting a structure ahead. It's huge, 15 kilometers long and nearly as wide." The construction facility appeared on their screens like a metal mountain floating in space. It had been built in secret over 2 decades, hidden from Earth's satellites and patrol ships. Inside its vast hangars, the most advanced technology humanity possessed had been slowly assembled into something that would either save their species or destroy it. Seokjin transferred to a small shuttle and flew toward the facility's main docking bay. The massive doors opened to reveal the UES Indomitable, hanging in the darkness like a sleeping giant. The battleship was 1.5 kilometers long, its hull made from materials that did not exist in any textbook. Strange patterns of light moved across its surface like the veins of some enormous living creature. Chief Engineer Baek Sujung met him at the airlock. She looked exhausted but excited, her eyes bright with the anticipation of someone about to test the impossible. Behind her, hundreds of technicians worked frantically to complete the final system checks. "Status report," Seokjin said as they walked through corridors that hummed with barely contained energy. "All primary systems are online," Sujung replied, consulting her tablet. "The quantum fold drives are charging, but we've never tested them at full capacity. The exotic matter containment is stable, and the reality anchors are holding steady. The main weapons system is—" She paused, searching for the right words. "It's ready to break physics." The Indomitable's bridge was unlike anything on other human ships. Instead of traditional control stations, there were neural interface pods that connected directly to the operator's brain. The ship was too advanced to be controlled by normal methods. It required a direct mental link between human consciousness and the vessel's quantum processors. Tactical Officer Nam Jihye was already connected to her pod, her eyes closed as data flowed directly into her mind. "Captain," she said without opening her eyes, "I can see the entire solar system. Every ship, every asteroid, every grain of space dust. The Vorthak fleet is approaching Mars orbit. They're preparing to demonstrate their power." Seokjin settled into the captain's neural interface. The moment the connection activated, he felt the ship's vast intelligence merge with his own thoughts. It was like suddenly being able to see colors that had never existed before, or hearing music played with instruments made of pure mathematics. The ship's AI spoke to him in a voice that existed only in his mind. "Captain, all systems are ready. Shall we show the galaxy what humanity can do when we stop pretending to be weak?" Meanwhile, on Earth, the news broadcasts showed the Vorthak fleet destroying the Martian terraforming stations. People watched in horror as decades of work vanished in seconds. The alien weapons turned solid matter into plasma with casual efficiency, and their ships moved through space like predators circling wounded prey. Dr. Choi Min-soo studied the attack patterns from his laboratory. The aliens were not just destroying the stations, they were sending a message, demonstrating their power in a way designed to cause maximum psychological impact. Every blast was calculated to show humanity that resistance was hopeless. But Choi had been working on classified projects for 20 years, and he knew things that the news broadcasts did not mention. The terraforming stations had been equipped with sensors that were far more advanced than their apparent function suggested. As the Vorthak destroyed them, those sensors had gathered detailed information about alien weapon systems and transmitted it to hidden receivers. Throughout the solar system, Admiral Kim received the data at Luna Command and forwarded it immediately to the Indomitable. The ship's quantum processors analyzed the alien technology in microseconds and reached a conclusion that would have terrified the Vorthak. If they had known about it, their weapons are powerful but primitive, the ship's AI reported to Captain Seok-jin. They rely on brute force applications of known physics. We operate on principles they have never encountered. Weapons specialist Ko Youngmin connected to his neural interface and felt the ship's arsenal wake up around him. The main cannon was something that military scientists had spent 10 years figuring out how to build. It did not fire projectiles or energy beams. It fired alterations to reality itself, making enemy ships cease to exist by convincing the universe they had never been there in the first place. "All weapons systems operational," he reported. "Probability inversors online. Temporal displacement cannons charged. Reality anchors stable. We are ready to remind the galaxy why humanity survived when smarter species went extinct." The Indomitable began to move. Its exotic matter drives bending space around the massive ship. It did not accelerate like normal vessels. Instead, it folded spacetime, stepping between distant points like a god walking across a garden. Fleet Commander Thisara was reviewing tactical displays when her sensors detected something impossible. A massive energy signature had appeared at the edge of their detection range, moving toward them at speeds that violated several known laws of physics. "Identify that contact," she ordered her sensor operators. The response came back minutes later, and it made no sense. "Unknown vessel, configuration not in our databases. Energy output exceeds theoretical maximums. Estimated size, 1.5 kilometers. Thisara felt her confidence waver for the first time in decades. The humans were supposed to be primitive. Their ships were small and weak, armed with kinetic weapons that posed no threat to Vorthak shields. But this vessel was larger than anything in her fleet and generating power levels that belonged in the core of a star. "Send scouts to investigate," she ordered, "and prepare the fleet for potential combat." As the alien scouts raced toward the unknown contact, the Indomitable completed its final preparations. Captain Seok-jin felt the ship's eagerness through their neural link. After 15 years of hiding in the darkness, humanity's ultimate weapon was finally ready to step into the light. The galaxy was about to learn that some prey had very sharp teeth. The destruction of the Martian terraforming stations was broadcast across every communication channel in the solar system. Fleet Commander Thisara wanted every human to see what happened to worlds that refused Vorthak rule. The plasma beams cut through metal and concrete like knives through paper, leaving nothing but glowing debris where humanity's dreams of a second world had once stood. Admiral Kim Dae-hyun watched the destruction from Luna Command, his face showing no emotion. His staff expected him to order the evacuation of Earth's colonies or perhaps attempt to negotiate with the aliens. Instead, he opened a communication channel that reached every human ship and station in the solar system. "This is Admiral Kim," he said calmly. "The Vorthak Empire has demanded our surrender. They have shown us the fate of worlds that resist them. I have consulted with Earth's leadership and our response is simple." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "We decline your offer. Lieutenant Park Ji-won stared at her admiral in shock. The alien fleet could destroy every human ship without losing a single vessel. Earth's weapons were useless against Vorthak shields, and their own defenses would last minutes at best. Refusing surrender was not brave, it was suicide. But Admiral Kim was not finished. Furthermore, he continued, we would like to make a counteroffer to the Vorthak Empire. You have 72 hours to begin withdrawal from our solar system. Non-compliance will result in consequences that you cannot imagine. The communication ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Every officer knew that Earth had no weapons capable of threatening the alien fleet. The Admiral had just signed their death warrant with words that made no sense. Fleet Commander Thisara received the human response and laughed. The sound was harsh and mechanical, translated through her ship's communication systems. Amusing, she told her officers. The prey threatens the predator. Begin bombardment of their outer colonies. Show them what defiance costs. The Vorthak fleet began to move toward the asteroid mining stations when space itself seemed to tear apart in front of them. Reality twisted into impossible shapes as something massive dropped out of quantum fold directly in their path. The UES Indomitable appeared like a metal mountain that had learned to fly. Its hull was black as deep space but covered with patterns of light that moved like living things. Energy signatures that belonged in the hearts of stars danced along its surface, and exotic matter containment fields warped the space around it into shapes that hurt to look at. Thisara's confidence evaporated like ice in a furnace. Her sensors were screaming warnings about power levels that exceeded anything in their databases. The human ship was not just large. It was generating energy readings that suggested technology centuries beyond what her species possessed. All ships. Combat formation, she ordered, but her voice lacked its usual certainty. Prepare to engage unknown contact. Captain Yoon Seok-jin felt the Indomitable's systems wake up fully as the alien fleet responded to their presence. Through his neural interface, he could sense every enemy ship, every weapon charging, every desperate communication between alien commanders who suddenly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. Open, a channel to the alien fleet, he ordered. The transmission reached every Vorthak ship simultaneously, carried by communication systems that operated on principles they did not understand. Captain Seok-jin's voice was calm and professional, with no trace of fear or anger. This is Captain Seok-jin of the UES Indomitable. You have entered human space without permission and committed acts of war against civilian targets. You have 60 seconds to begin immediate withdrawal from the system. Non-compliance will result in total annihilation of your fleet. Tactical Officer Nam Ji-hye observed the alien formation through her neural link. Captain, they've stopped advancing. Individual ship commanders are breaking formation. I'm detecting panic communications between their vessels. The Vorthak fleet was indeed in chaos. Ship commanders who had conquered dozens of worlds were suddenly faced with something beyond their experience. The human vessel was not just powerful, it was generating energy patterns that their science insisted were impossible. Commander Lee Hana monitored the situation from Luna Command, watching as the alien fleet struggled to maintain formation. Admiral, she reported, long-range sensors are detecting massive power fluctuations from the unknown human vessel. Whatever it is, it's nothing like our other ships. Dr. Choi Min-soo had been analyzing the energy readings from his laboratory. His findings were so incredible that he had to check them 3 times before reporting to Admiral Kim. Sir, that ship is manipulating fundamental forces that we barely understand. Its weapons don't just use exotic physics, they seem to rewrite the rules of reality. Fleet Commander. Thisara tried to maintain her authority over subordinates, who were questioning every assumption they had ever made about human capabilities. The species they had planned to conquer in a few days had just revealed technology that made their own weapons look like sharpened sticks. Send a communication probe to analyze their ship, she ordered. I want to know what we're dealing with. The probe launched from the Vorthak flagship and accelerated toward the Indomitable. As it approached, the human ship's defensive systems activated automatically. Instead of shooting down the probe, something far stranger happened. The probe simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from reality as if it had never been built. Weapons specialist Ko Youngman felt the ship's defensive systems through his neural interface. Captain, their probe triggered our reality anchors. The quantum fold dampeners classified it as a temporal anomaly and corrected the timeline to exclude its existence. Seokjin nodded calmly. Inform the alien fleet that they now have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal. The countdown had begun, but neither side fully understood what would happen when it reached zero. The Vorthak had never encountered a species that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. They had built their empire by conquering civilizations that fought with conventional weapons and obeyed conventional physics, but humanity had learned to think outside the box that contained normal space and time. The Indomitable was not just a warship, it was a statement that some species refused to accept the limitations that others took for granted. As the final seconds counted down, Thaisara faced a choice that would define the future of her empire. She could order an attack against a ship that operated beyond her understanding, or she could admit that the Vorthak had finally encountered something they could not conquer. The moment of truth had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Fleet Commander Thaisara made her decision with the desperation of a predator that had suddenly realized it was facing something far more dangerous than expected. The 60 seconds had expired, and the human ship still hung in space like a dark promise of destruction. All ships, target the human vessel, she broadcast across the Vorthak fleet. Maximum firepower, show them why the galaxy fears our name. 300 alien warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams that could melt continents lanced through space toward the Indomitable. Antimatter torpedoes that had cracked moons streaked toward their target like falling stars. Gravitational weapons that twisted space-time into deadly knots focused their power on the human battleship. The barrage was enough to destroy a small fleet. The combined firepower could have turned Earth's entire navy into glowing vapor in seconds. Every weapon in the Vorthak arsenal was aimed at the single human ship that dared to challenge an empire that had conquered 23 worlds. Captain Yoon, Seokjin felt the incoming attack through his neural interface like distant thunder. The ship's AI whispered in his mind, "Defensive systems are responding automatically. Shall I explain to them why their weapons cannot harm us?" The Indomitable did not move to avoid the attack. It did not need to. The defensive shields that protected it operated on principles that the Vorthak had never encountered. The plasma beam struck barriers made of folded space-time and simply vanished into dimensions that existed only in theoretical mathematics. Antimatter torpedoes hit reality, anchors that convinced the universe the weapons had never been fired. Gravitational distortions met probability inversors that decided the attack had a 0% chance of success and made that decision retroactively true. The alien barrage struck the human ship and accomplished absolutely nothing. The Indomitable hung in space exactly as it had before, its hull unmarked and its shields showing no sign of strain. Exotic energy patterns danced across its surface like aurora playing in an impossible sky. Tactical Officer Nam Jihye monitored the alien fleet's growing panic through her neural link. "Captain, enemy communications are in chaos. They're trying to understand how their weapons failed. Some ship commanders are suggesting immediate retreat." "Let them consider their options," Seokjin replied calmly. "But make it clear that our patience has limits." The Indomitable's main weapon began to charge. Weapons specialist Ko Youngmin felt the system wake up through his neural interface, and the sensation was like touching the edge of infinity. The main cannon did not fire projectiles or energy beams. It fired alterations to the fundamental structure of reality itself. "Main weapon charged and ready," he reported. "Target selection?" Seokjin studied the alien formation through the ship's sensors. 800 vessels spread across thousands of kilometers of space, each one carrying enough firepower to sterilize a planet. But numbers meant nothing when your enemy could rewrite the rules of existence. "Fire," he ordered simply. The first shot was almost gentle. A pulse of energy that looked like contained lightning reached out from the Indomitable and touched a Vorthak cruiser. The alien ship did not explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist, leaving behind a perfectly spherical void where 600 meters of metal and technology had been. The void lasted for exactly 3 seconds before space-time flowed back to fill the gap. But the ship was gone, erased from reality so completely that the universe itself forgot it had ever existed. Fleet Commander Thaisara stared at her tactical display in horror. One of her ships had vanished without a trace. Not destroyed, deleted. Her sensors detected no wreckage, no energy signatures, no indication that a starship had ever occupied that location. "Status report on the Hammer of Conquest," she demanded. Her sensor officer's response was quiet and terrified. "Commander, there is no ship by that name in our fleet database. There never has been." The second shot curved through space in defiance of conventional physics. It moved like a living thing, bending around asteroids and changing direction to seek its targets. 3 more Vorthak vessels simply stopped existing, their crews and weapons and history erased as if they had never been built. Dr. Choi Min-soo observed the battle from his laboratory on Earth, his instruments barely capable of detecting the exotic energies being released. "Admiral," he reported to Luna Command, "that weapon is not operating within normal spacetime. It's making tactical decisions at the quantum level, selecting targets based on probability calculations that exist outside our reality." The alien fleet was learning what it meant to fight an enemy that had mastered the art of making the impossible routine. Their weapons could destroy matter and energy, but the humans were deleting the very concept of their existence. Weapons Specialist Ko activated the ship's secondary systems. Temporal displacement cannons began charging, ready to move enemy vessels backward in time until they collided with their own past selves. Reality anchors locked onto alien ships and began convincing the universe that they were located somewhere else entirely. "Probability inversors online," Ko reported. "Quantum fold dampeners ready." The exotic matter containment system is requesting permission to demonstrate why faster-than-light travel is considered impossible. The Vorthak fleet began to break apart as individual ship. Commanders made desperate attempts to escape. Some vessels tried to jump to hyperspace, only to discover that the space around them had been convinced that faster-than-light travel was a mathematical impossibility. Others attempted to surrender, broadcasting signals in every known language, but their messages were intercepted by communication systems that decided the aliens had never learned to speak and translated their words into random noise. Fleet Commander Thaisara finally understood what her empire had encountered. The humans were not just technologically advanced. They had learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that governed existence itself. Their weapons did not obey the laws of physics because they had convinced physics to obey them instead. "Send a message to High Command," she ordered her communications officer. "Tell them we have encountered a species that operates beyond conventional reality. Request immediate reinforcement of all border systems and—" She paused, the words bitter in her mouth. "And recommend that human space be classified as a forbidden zone." But her message would never reach its destination. The Indomitable's communication jammers had decided that the Vorthak language had never been invented and were helpfully translating all alien transmissions into the sound of cosmic background radiation. Captain Seokjin felt the fear radiating from the enemy fleet through his neural interface. The aliens who had conquered 23 civilizations were finally experiencing what their victims had felt. But unlike the Vorthak, humanity would offer them a choice. "Open a channel to all enemy vessels," he ordered. The transmission reached every alien ship simultaneously, carried by systems that treated the speed of light as a polite suggestion rather than an absolute law. "This is your final warning." Seokjin's voice echoed across the Vorthak fleet. "Begin immediate withdrawal from human space, or we will demonstrate why your empire's reputation means nothing to us." The galaxy's balance of power had just shifted, and everyone involved knew it. The question now was whether the Vorthak would be smart enough to recognize when they had been beaten by something far beyond their understanding. The retreat began within minutes of Captain Seokjin's final warning. Vorthak ships that had approached the solar system in perfect military formation now fled in complete chaos, their commanders more terrified than they had ever been in their long careers of conquest. Fleet Commander Thaisara tried to maintain some dignity as she ordered the withdrawal, but her crew could hear the fear in her voice. "All ships, immediate tactical withdrawal. Set course for the outer system boundary and prepare for emergency hyperspace jump." But Captain Seokjin was not finished with them. The Indomitable began to follow the retreating fleet, not to destroy them but to send a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Chief Science Officer Ryu, Seokjin called through his neural interface, "Activate the quantum signature protocol." Ryu Taeyong felt the ship's exotic science systems come online around her consciousness. The technology was so advanced that it seemed like magic, even to the humans who had built it. "Quantum markers prepared, Captain. Once we tag their ships, every species in the galaxy will be able to identify them as the fleet that ran from humanity." The Indomitable extended invisible fields of quantum energy that touched every fleeing Vorthak vessel. The markers were permanent and impossible to remove, marking each ship with a signature that announced to the universe, this vessel fled from a single human battleship. The retreat became a complete rout as panic spread through the alien fleet. Some commanders, desperate to escape, accidentally crashed into their own support ships. Others shut down all their systems and broadcast surrender signals, hoping the terrifying human vessel would show mercy. Captain, Tactical Officer Nam reported, "I'm detecting multiple collision events in the enemy fleet. Their formation has completely collapsed. Several ships are requesting permission to surrender." Admiral Kim Dae-hyun watched the alien retreat from Luna Command, hardly believing what his sensors were showing. The mighty Vorthak Empire, conquerors of 23 worlds, was fleeing from a single human ship. Years of careful planning and secret construction had paid off beyond his wildest hopes. "Open a communication channel to all human colonies," he ordered. Lieutenant Park Ji-won, "broadcast on all frequencies. Let every person in the solar system know that the invasion is over." The message spread across the solar system faster than light, carried by quantum communication arrays that operated on the same principles as the Indomitable's impossible technology. On Mars and the asteroid colonies, aboard mining ships and research stations, humans learned that they had survived their first contact with a hostile alien empire, but Admiral Kim had a larger message to send. Using captured Vorthak communication networks, he broadcast to every known civilization in the galaxy. His words were translated into hundreds of alien languages and transmitted across thousands of light years. "This is Admiral Kim Dae-hyun of the Human Solar Defense Force." His message began. "Today, the Vorthak Empire attempted to conquer our world. They demanded our surrender and threatened to destroy our civilization if we refused. We declined their offer and demonstrated why humanity has survived every challenge we have faced. We extend an invitation to all peaceful species. Earth wishes to establish diplomatic and trade relations with any civilization that approaches us in friendship. Those who choose aggression will discover why the Vorthak fleet now fears to speak our name." The message reached alien worlds that had never heard of humanity, carrying the news that the supposedly invincible Vorthak Empire had been defeated by a species they had tried to conquer. The political effects were immediate and dramatic. On worlds that had been conquered by the Vorthak, enslaved populations began to rebel. If the mighty empire could be beaten by unknown humans, perhaps their chains were not as strong as they appeared. Resistance movements that had been crushed years before began to reorganize, inspired by the knowledge that their oppressors were not invincible. Ambassador Han Jisoo found herself overwhelmed with diplomatic requests within days of the battle. Trade delegations from dozens of species requested meetings with Earth's representatives. Everyone wanted to establish relations with the mysterious humans who had humbled the galaxy's most feared empire. "Admiral," she reported to Kim during their daily briefing, "I've received over 300 formal diplomatic requests. The Alterian Trade Consortium wants exclusive mineral rights. The Kepler Federation is offering military alliance. Even species we've never heard of are sending ambassadors." The galaxy was learning that humanity represented something new in galactic politics. Unlike every other advanced species, humans did not seem interested in conquest or domination. They wanted to explore, learn, and build relationships based on mutual benefit rather than fear. Dr. Choi Min-soo spent his time analyzing alien technology samples that arrived with each diplomatic mission. Every species wanted to trade their advanced science for access to human quantum manipulation technology. What they did not understand was that humanity's greatest advantage was not their weapons, but their refusal to accept the limitations that other species took for granted. Fleet Commander Thisara, meanwhile, faced the consequences of her failure. Stripped of rank and exiled from the empire she had served for decades, she spent her remaining days warning anyone who would listen about the humans and their reality-bending technology. Never underestimate a species that treats the impossible as merely inconvenient, she told audiences of military, officers, and government officials. The humans do not just break the rules of war, they break the rules of existence itself. They have weapons that convince the universe their enemies never existed. They have defenses that make physics apologize for causing inconvenience. Stay away from their space. Stay far away. But her warnings often fell on deaf ears. The Vorthak Empire was crumbling as conquered worlds declared independence and former allies sought new protectors. The defeat at human hands had revealed the Empire's weakness, and its enemies were quick to take advantage. The UES Indomitable returned to its hidden construction facility in the Kuiper Belt, but its brief appearance had fundamentally altered the balance of galactic power. Captain Seokjin and his crew were debriefed extensively, their experiences recorded for future reference. Status report on additional units? Admiral Kim asked during the classified briefing. Chief Engineer Baek Soo-jung consulted her secure tablet. Construction of the second and third dreadnoughts is proceeding on schedule. The UES Defiant should be operational within 6 months, and the UES Relentless will be ready by year's end. The new quantum fold manufacturing systems are exceeding all projections. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as guardians of a new age. The old cycle of empire and subjugation that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia was finally broken. In its place rose something unprecedented, a species powerful enough to enforce peace but wise enough to choose cooperation over conquest. In the depths of space, hidden construction facilities continued their silent work. More dreadnoughts took shape in the darkness, each one a promise that the galaxy's newfound peace would be protected by those who had learned to make miracles routine. The age of human influence had begun, and the universe would never be the same. Where once there had been only predators and prey, now there were teachers, protectors, and friends among the stars. The Vorthak had sought to conquer humanity, but instead they had awakened something that would reshape the galaxy itself. The lesson was simple, though few species fully understood it yet. Some prey had very sharp teeth, and humanity had just reminded the universe that the impossible was simply another word for not yet accomplished.